Nathan Carter sat stiffly in his chair, picking at the food on his plate without much interest. He wasn't hungry, not really, but it was one of those rare dinners where his father, Richard Carter, insisted he attend. These events were always the same. Fancy restaurants, expensive wine, and endless talk about deals, stocks, and profits. Nathan hated them. His mind wandered as he watched the waitstaff move silently between tables, carrying trays loaded with gourmet meals. The restaurant was packed tonight, buzzing with quiet conversations and the clinking of glasses. It was a place where people came not just to eat but to be seen. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light over polished wooden floors and pristine white tablecloths. Nathan glanced around, feeling out of place despite the designer suit he wore. He had never felt like he belonged in this world, the world of wealth and power that his family controlled. Richard Carter, seated at the head of the table, was deep in conversation with two men in dark suits. They spoke in low tones, occasionally, nodding or gesturing with their hands. Nathan tuned them out, focusing instead on the rhythmic tapping of his fork against the edge of his plate. His thoughts drifted back to his childhood, to memories of his mother Claire. She had vanished when he was only 7 years old, leaving behind an emptiness that no amount of money could fill. No one had ever given him a straight answer about why she left. His father claimed she walked away because she couldn't handle the pressure of being married to a billionaire. But Nathan had always suspected there was more to the story. Over the years, he'd asked questions, pried into old records, even hired private investigators, but nothing concrete had ever surfaced. All he had were fragments, a half-forgotten smile, the scent of lavender, and a lingering sense of loss. Just then, a waitress approached the table, balancing a tray laden with fresh plates. Something about her caught Nathan's attention immediately. Her movements were graceful yet hesitant, as if she didn't quite belong here either. She had shoulder-length brown hair tied loosely at the nape of her neck, and her eyes darted nervously around the room. When she turned slightly to set down a dish, Nathan froze. It was her face. The resemblance was uncanny. Her features mirrored Claire's so closely that for a moment, Nathan forgot how to breathe. His heart pounded in his chest as he stared at her, unable to look away. Could it be? Was it possible? Before he realized what he was doing, he raised his hand and pointed directly at her. His voice rang out loud and clear, cutting through the hum of conversation in the restaurant. "That's Mom," he exclaimed, his tone filled with shock and disbelief. For a split second, time seemed to stop. Everyone at the table turned to look at him, then followed his gaze to the waitress. Even the other diners nearby paused their conversations, curious about the sudden commotion. The waitress froze, her eyes widening in panic. Plates wobbled precariously on her tray before slipping from her grasp and crashing to the floor with a loud clatter. Then, without another word, she bolted. Dropping the tray entirely, she spun around and ran toward the exit, weaving through tables and chairs with surprising speed. Gasps rippled through the crowd as people craned their necks to watch her go. Within seconds, she disappeared through the door, leaving behind a trail of confusion and broken crockery. Nathan shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Wait," he called after her, but it was too late. She was already gone. He stood there, stunned, his pulse racing. What had just happened? Who was that woman? And why did she look so much like his mother? His father's sharp voice broke through his thoughts. "Sit down, Nathan," Richard said, his tone clipped and irritated. "You're making a scene." But Nathan barely heard him. His mind raced with possibilities. If that waitress truly was connected to Claire, then maybe, just maybe, he finally had a lead. After all these years of searching, of wondering, of feeling abandoned, he might finally have a chance to uncover the truth. Ignoring his father's disapproving glare, Nathan grabbed his coat and hurried toward the exit. The cold night air hit him as soon as he stepped outside, jolting him back to reality. He scanned the street looking for any sign of the mysterious waitress. Pedestrians strolled past, oblivious to his frantic search. Taxis honked their horns, and neon lights flickered overhead, painting the pavement in shades of red and blue. She was nowhere to be found. Frustration bubbled up inside him, but he pushed it aside. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Whoever that woman was, she knew something. And Nathan was determined to find out what it was. As he stood there staring into the bustling crowd, a single thought echoed in his mind. I'm going to get answers. The next morning, Nathan woke up with one thing on his mind: finding the waitress who had vanished so suddenly the night before. He couldn't shake the image of her face from his thoughts. It haunted him, not just because she looked like Claire, but because of the fear he'd seen in her eyes when he pointed at her. That look told him she wasn't just some random stranger. She knew something, and whatever it was, it scared her. Nathan spent hours retracing her steps. First, he went back to the restaurant where everything had happened. The manager reluctantly gave him her name after Nathan flashed a wad of cash and promised not to cause trouble. Her name was Lily Harper, and according to the manager, she had worked there for less than 6 months. She kept mostly to herself, never talked about her past, and always seemed nervous, like she was waiting for something or someone to catch up with her. With Lily's name in hand, Nathan decided to track her down. After some digging online and bribing a few people who owed him favors, he managed to find her address. It wasn't far from the restaurant, just a short drive to a run-down neighborhood on the outskirts of Brooklyn. The building itself looked ancient, with cracked windows and graffiti covering its walls. Nathan hesitated for a moment before stepping inside, unsure of what he might find. Lily's apartment was on the 3rd floor. When Nathan knocked on the door, there was no answer. He tried again, louder this time, but still nothing. Finally, he pushed the door open slightly, it wasn't locked, and stepped inside. The place was small and messy, as if Lily had left in a hurry. Clothes were strewn across the floor and dishes piled up in the sink. But what caught Nathan's attention was the table in the corner of the room. It was covered with papers, photographs, and letters. He moved closer, his heart pounding as he picked up one of the photos. It was an older picture of a woman who looked exactly like Claire. Beneath it lay a crumpled letter addressed to Lily, in shaky handwriting. Nathan began reading through the documents, piecing together bits of information. Some of the letters mentioned a company called Genus Labs, a name that sent a chill down his spine. He vaguely remembered hearing about it years ago during one of his father's business meetings. Back then, it had been described as a cutting-edge biotech firm specializing in genetic research. But now, looking at these papers, Nathan suspected there was more to it than met the eye. One particular document stood out, a memo dated several years earlier, discussing experiments related to memory manipulation and cloning. Cloning. Nathan's stomach twisted at the thought. Could this have something to do with Claire's disappearance? Was it possible that his mother hadn't simply walked away, that she had been involved in something far bigger and more dangerous? He sifted through the pile. Another photograph caught his eye. This one showed Lily standing next to Claire, or someone who looked almost identical to her. They were smiling, their arms around each other, clearly close. Nathan stared at the image, trying to make sense of it. Who was Lily, really? And how did she know Claire? Determined to get answers, Nathan returned home and confronted his father. Richard Carter was in his study, surrounded by stacks of papers and glowing computer screens. He looked up when Nathan entered, his expression unreadable. "What do you want?" Richard asked, his tone clipped. "I need to know the truth," Nathan said, slamming the photo of Claire and Lily onto the desk. "Who is this woman, and why does she look exactly like Mom?" Richard's jaw tightened, and for a moment he didn't say anything. Then, with a heavy sigh, he leaned back in his chair. "I knew this day would come eventually," he muttered. "Your mother. She didn't just leave us, Nathan. She accused me of being involved in illegal experiments conducted by Genus Labs." Nathan's eyes widened. "Illegal experiments? What kind of experiments?" "Things I don't fully understand," Richard admitted. "She claimed they were tampering with human DNA, creating clones, erasing memories. I thought she was paranoid, at first, but then she disappeared, vanished without a trace. I assumed she ran away to protect herself, or maybe to expose them. But you let everyone believe she abandoned us, Nathan said, his voice rising. You let me grow up thinking she didn't care enough to stay. I did what I had to do, Richard snapped, slamming his fist on the desk. If I'd told you the truth, you would have gone looking for her and gotten yourself into trouble. Those people at Genius Labs, they're dangerous, Nathan. You can't trust them. Nathan clenched his fists, struggling to process what he'd just heard. His father's words only made him more determined to uncover the truth. Whatever Genius Labs was hiding, it had something to do with Claire, and possibly Lily too. Over the next few days, Nathan threw himself into researching the company. He scoured news articles, court records, and leaked documents, searching for any mention of their controversial work. Most of the information was vague or heavily redacted, but one name kept popping up: Dr. Laura Bennett, a former lead scientist at Genius Labs who had mysteriously resigned years ago. Tracking down Dr. Bennett proved difficult, but Nathan eventually found her living in a quiet suburb outside the city. She agreed to meet him at a local cafe, though she seemed wary when he arrived. She was an older woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that studied him intently. "You're Claire's son," she said after a long pause. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Nathan replied. "I need to know what happened to her." Dr. Bennett sighed, glancing around the cafe before leaning closer. "Claire stumbled onto something she shouldn't have," she explained. "She discovered that Genius Labs wasn't just experimenting with genetics. They were using real people as test subjects, people who didn't consent to it. When she threatened to go public, they silenced her." "Silenced her?" Nathan repeated, his blood running cold. "They faked her death," Dr. Bennett continued. "Made it look like she died in a car accident, but I think she's still alive somewhere hiding. As for that waitress you mentioned," she trailed off, shaking her head. "If she looks like Claire, there's a good chance she's tied to those experiments somehow." Nathan left the cafe feeling both overwhelmed and furious. Every new piece of information only raised more questions. Who was Lily, really? Was she connected to Claire? Or was she something else entirely? And most importantly, where was Claire now? That night, as Nathan sat alone in his apartment, staring at the documents spread out on his coffee table, he realized he was closer than ever to finding answers. But he also knew the truth wouldn't come easily. If Genius Labs was as dangerous as everyone said, then exposing them would mean risking everything, including his own life. Still, Nathan couldn't turn back now. Not when he was so close to uncovering the secrets that had haunted him for years. Whatever it took, he vowed to find Claire, and to bring justice to those responsible for tearing his family apart. It had been days since Nathan's meeting with Dr. Bennett, and every new revelation about Genius Labs left him more determined to uncover the truth. But time was running out. Whoever was behind Claire's disappearance, and Lily's sudden reappearance, was clearly watching his every move. He could feel it. Every phone call he made felt too loud. Every email he sent felt too exposed. Still, he pressed on, knowing that backing down now wasn't an option. Then late one night, there was a knock at his door. Nathan froze, his hand hovering over the doorknob. Who would come to see him at this hour? Slowly, he opened the door. And there she was, Lily Harper. She looked even more nervous than before, her arms crossed tightly over her chest like she was trying to shield herself from the world. "I need to talk to you," she said quickly, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone to appear behind her. "Come in," Nathan replied, stepping aside. He closed the door behind her and locked it, then gestured for her to sit. She hesitated but eventually perched on the edge of his couch, her fingers twisting anxiously together. "You know who I am, don't you?" she asked after a moment, her voice barely above a whisper. "You must have figured it out by now." Nathan nodded slowly. "You knew my mother, maybe better than anyone else. And you look just like her." "Why?" Lily sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I worked at Genius Labs. Not for long, though. I quit as soon as I found out what they were really doing. They weren't just experimenting. With genetics or cloning, they were playing God, creating copies of people, erasing memories, destroying lives. Her words sent a chill down Nathan's spine. And my mother? What happened to her? She uncovered something she shouldn't have, Lily explained. She learned about Project Echo, a secret program to create perfect clones of individuals. They used her DNA to make, well, you've probably already guessed. Nathan's mind raced. Are you saying you're part of Project Echo? That you're a clone of my mother? No, Lily said firmly. Not me. I'm not a clone. But I know who is, or was. There's someone else. Someone they created using your mother's DNA. That's why I ran when you pointed at me in the restaurant. I thought you'd recognize me, not because I look like Claire, but because I've seen what they can do. If they find out I'm helping you, she trailed off, her eyes filling with fear. Nathan leaned forward, his voice urgent. Help me do what? Find her? Find the clone? Lily nodded. If we're going to get answers, we need to go back to where it all started, the old Genus Labs facility. It's abandoned now, but some of the records might still be there. If we're lucky, we'll find something that can lead us to Claire, or at least tell us what happened to her. The idea of breaking into an abandoned lab sounded dangerous, even reckless. But Nathan didn't care. This was his chance to finally get closure, to understand why his mother had disappeared and whether she was still alive. He agreed to meet Lily early the next morning, and together they set out for the outskirts of the city, where the crumbling remains of Genus Labs waited. When they arrived, the building loomed before them like a ghost from the past. Its windows were shattered, its walls covered in ivy, and its entrance blocked by a rusted chain-link fence. They slipped through a gap in the fence and stepped inside, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. The air inside was thick with dust, and the faint smell of chemicals lingered in the corners. Papers and broken equipment littered the floors, evidence of a hasty evacuation years ago. As they moved deeper into the building, Nathan noticed signs pointing toward restricted areas. Authorized personnel only. One sign caught his eye. Project Echo Testing Facility. This way, Lily whispered, leading him down a narrow corridor. At the end of the hall was a heavy metal door, slightly ajar. Pushing it open, they entered a large room dominated by a massive glass chamber in the center. Inside the chamber, wires and tubes hung loose, swaying gently in the draft from the open door. What is this place? Nathan asked, his voice trembling. This is where they did most of their experiments, Lily replied. They called it the Echo Chamber. It's where they tested memory manipulation and cloned subjects. Nathan's stomach churned as he imagined what had gone on here. He began searching the room, rifling through drawers and cabinets until he found a stack of folders labeled Project Echo. Flipping through them, he discovered detailed notes and photographs documenting the creation of a subject described as a near-perfect replica of Claire Carter. She exists, Nathan murmured, holding up a photo of a young woman who looked exactly like his mother. This is her, this is the clone, Lily nodded grimly. That's Emily. She's different. Not fully human, not entirely machine. They programmed her to forget who she was, to erase any connection to Claire. But deep down, she's still part of your mother. Before Nathan could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway outside. Both of them froze, exchanging panicked looks. We're not alone, Lily whispered. We need to leave. Now. But it was too late. Armed guards burst into the room, their weapons trained on Nathan and Lily. Behind them stood a man in a sleek black suit, someone Nathan recognized immediately. It was Victor Hale, a high-ranking executive at Genus Labs and one of his father's closest allies. Well, well, Hale sneered, stepping forward. Looks like we have a couple of trespassers. Did you really think you could sneak around without us noticing? Nathan clenched his fists, his mind racing. What do you want from us? Hale chuckled darkly. Oh, nothing much. Just the files you've taken, and maybe a little chat about how far you're willing to go to protect your, family secrets. Lily grabbed Nathan's arm, pulling him toward a side door. Run, she hissed. Without hesitation, they bolted, dodging the guards' attempts to grab them. Bullets whizzed past their heads as they sprinted down the corridor, their hearts pounding wildly. Behind them, shouts and footsteps grew louder, but they didn't stop. Finally, they reached a fire exit and burst outside, gasping for breath as they stumbled into the cold night air. For a moment, they simply stood there, catching their breath and trying to process what had just happened. Then Lily turned to Nathan, her expression grim. "They'll be coming after us," she said. "If we're going to survive, we need to split up. You take the files and keep moving. I'll distract them." "No," Nathan protested. "I'm not leaving you behind." "You don't have a choice," Lily insisted. "Find Emily. Protect her. She's the key to everything." Before Nathan could argue further, Lily turned and ran back toward the building, drawing the guard's attention away from him. He watched her disappear into the shadows, his heart aching with guilt and determination. She had sacrificed herself to give him a chance, and now it was up to him to make sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. Clutching the stolen files tightly, Nathan slipped into the darkness, vowing to uncover the truth no matter the cost. Nathan didn't stop running until he was miles away from the abandoned Genus Labs facility. His lungs burned, his legs ached, and his mind raced with everything that had just happened. Lily's sacrifice weighed heavily on him, her decision to distract the guard so he could escape. He knew she had done it to protect him, but the thought of leaving her behind gnawed at his conscience. Still, he couldn't afford to dwell on it now. Not when he had the stolen files and a lead on Emily, the clone created using Claire's DNA. The files were stuffed inside a weathered backpack slung over his shoulder. As soon as he found a safe place to hide, a quiet cafe tucked into a corner of the city, he spread them out on the table and began reading. The documents painted a chilling picture of Project Echo, an experimental program designed to create perfect human replicas with altered memories. According to the notes, Emily wasn't just a clone. She was engineered to be smarter, stronger, and more adaptable than the original subject. But something had gone wrong during the process. Her memories hadn't been fully erased. They were fragmented, scattered like pieces of a puzzle she couldn't solve. One file mentioned a location where Emily was being held, a secret lab hidden beneath an old warehouse on the edge of town. It was risky, but Nathan knew he had no choice. If he wanted answers, and if he hoped to reunite with the part of his mother that still existed in Emily, he had to go there. That night, Nathan approached the warehouse cautiously. The building looked abandoned, its windows boarded up and its walls covered in graffiti. But as he circled around to the back, he noticed a reinforced steel door partially concealed by overgrown weeds. A keypad glowed faintly beside it, requiring a code to enter. Nathan hesitated for a moment before pulling out a small device he'd borrowed from a friend. It was a hacking tool designed to bypass security systems. After a few tense minutes, the door clicked open, and he slipped inside. The interior of the warehouse was dark and eerily silent. Nathan moved carefully, avoiding loose floorboards and debris. At the far end of the room, he found a staircase leading downward. Each step creaked softly under his weight, but no alarm sounded. When he reached the bottom, he entered a starkly lit laboratory filled with high-tech equipment. Monitors displayed streams of data, and glass containers held samples of unknown substances. And then, in the center of the room, he saw her. Emily. She stood motionless, staring at him with wide, unblinking eyes. She looked exactly like Claire. Younger, perhaps, but unmistakably the same person. Her short brown hair framed her pale face, and her hands hung limply at her sides. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Emily tilted her head slightly, studying him with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. "Who are you?" she asked finally, her voice soft and hesitant. "My name is Nathan," he replied, taking a cautious step forward. I'm your son." Emily blinked, her brow furrowing as though trying to make sense of his words. "My son? That doesn't feel right. I don't remember having a child." "It's complicated," Nathan admitted. "You're not exactly... Well, you're not entirely human. You're a clone, a copy of my mother, Claire. She disappeared years ago, and these people, they made you using her DNA." Emily's expression shifted from confusion to fear. She took a step back, shaking her head. No, that can't be true. I'm just me. I don't know anything about a mother or a son or... Her voice trailed off and tears welled up in her eyes. Why does my head hurt? Nathan softened his tone, stepping closer until he was within arm's reach. They messed with your memories, Emily. They took things away from you, things you were supposed to remember, but deep down you're still part of Claire, part of my family. For a long moment, Emily simply stared at him, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. Finally, she whispered, "If what you're saying is true, then why am I here? Why did they do this to me?" "They wanted to control you," Nathan explained bitterly. "To use you for their experiments, but I'm here to change that, to get you out of here and help you figure out who you really are." Emily hesitated, glancing around the lab as if seeing it for the first time. "I don't belong here," she murmured. "I never did." Before either of them could say more, the sound of footsteps echoed through the corridor outside. Nathan cursed under his breath and grabbed Emily's hand. "We need to leave. Now." Together, they hurried toward a side exit, weaving between rows of equipment and dodging security cameras. Just as they reached the door, it burst open, revealing several armed guards led by Victor Hale. Nathan recognized him instantly, the same man who had confronted him at the abandoned lab. Well, Hale sneered, raising his gun. "Looks like we've got ourselves quite the reunion." Nathan pushed Emily behind him, shielding her with his body. "Stay back," he shouted. "You've done enough damage already." Hale chuckled darkly. "Oh, Nathan, you have no idea how deep this goes. Your precious mother, Claire, she sold herself to us. Volunteered for the experiments. Everything we did, she agreed to." Nathan's blood ran cold. "That's a lie." "Is it?" Hale countered. "Ask her yourself if you ever find her." With that, he gestured to the guards, who raised their weapons. Nathan tightened his grip on Emily's hand and bolted toward another exit. Bullets ricocheted off the walls as they ran, adrenaline fueling every step. They barely made it out alive, bursting into the cool night air just as the first shots rang out behind them. Once they were safely away from the warehouse, Nathan slowed to a stop, leaning against a lamppost to catch his breath. Emily stood beside him, trembling but unharmed. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now," Nathan said, determination burning in his eyes. "We fight back." Over the next few days, Nathan helped Emily adjust to life outside the lab. She struggled with simple tasks, like choosing what to wear or ordering food at a restaurant, but she was eager to learn. Slowly, fragments of her past began to surface. She remembered bits and pieces of Claire's life, childhood memories, favorite songs, even moments with Nathan when he was young. Though incomplete, these glimpses gave her a sense of identity and hope. Meanwhile, Nathan worked tirelessly to expose Genus Labs. Using the stolen files, he pieced together evidence of their illegal activities and prepared to take them down, once and for all. With Emily by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came next. Together, they vowed to uncover the truth, not just for themselves, but for everyone affected by the company's crimes. Whatever the future held, Nathan knew one thing for certain: he wouldn't rest until justice was served. The day had finally arrived. After weeks of preparation, Nathan stood backstage at the press conference, his heart pounding like a drum. This was it. The moment when he would expose Genus Labs to the world. Every piece of evidence he had gathered, every secret he had uncovered was about to come to light. Beside him, Emily waited quietly, her hands clasped tightly together. She looked nervous but determined, ready to face whatever came next. Nathan glanced down at the folder in his hand. Inside were the stolen files, along with new discoveries they had made since leaving the hidden lab. There were detailed reports of illegal experiments, photos of the echo chamber, and even recordings of conversations between Victor Hale and other executives discussing their plans. It was enough to bring down not only Genus Labs but also everyone involved, including Nathan's own father. "Are you sure about this?" Emily asked softly, breaking the silence. Once we do this, there's no going back. I'm sure, Nathan replied without hesitation. We can't let them get away with what they've done. Not to you, not to my mother, and not to anyone else who's been hurt by their experiments. Emily nodded, though her eyes still reflected uncertainty. What if people don't believe us? What if they think I'm some kind of monster? You're not a monster, Nathan said firmly, turning to face her. You're proof that they went too far. You're proof that they need to be stopped. And once the world sees the truth, they'll have no choice but to listen. With that, Nathan took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The conference hall erupted into chaos as dozens of reporters scrambled to get a better view. Cameras flashed, microphones were thrust forward, and voices shouted over one another, all trying to capture the story of the century. Nathan ignored the noise, focusing instead on the task ahead. He walked to the podium, set the folder down, and tapped the microphone to test it. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice steady despite the storm around him. Thank you for coming today. What I'm about to share with you will shock you. It may even anger you. But I promise you this, it's the truth. He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. For years, a company called Genus Labs has operated in secret, conducting illegal experiments on human beings. They've tampered with DNA, created clones, and erased memories, all in the name of profit and power. My family has been deeply connected to these crimes, and today, I'm here to expose them. As he spoke, he gestured to the large screen behind him. Images appeared one by one. The echo chamber, classified documents, and surveillance footage of scientists working late into the night. Gasps rippled through the audience as the reality of Genus Labs' actions became clear. This woman, Nathan continued, pointing to a photo of Claire on the screen, is my mother. Or rather, she was my mother, until she disappeared after uncovering the truth about Genus Labs. They didn't just silence her, they used her DNA to create a clone. He turned slightly, motioning for Emily to join him on stage. When Emily stepped forward, the room fell silent. Reporters stared in disbelief, their pens hovering above notebooks, unsure how to process what they were seeing. Emily looked out at the crowd, her expression calm but resolute. This is Emily, Nathan explained. She's the result of Genus Labs experiments. She's part of my mother, and yet, she's her own person. They tried to control her, to erase her identity, but they failed. She survived. And now she's here to tell her story. Emily hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer to the microphone. I don't remember much about my life before the lab, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. But I know one thing. I didn't ask for this. No one should have. To live like I did, trapped and used for someone else's gain. These people, they took everything from me, from my mother, from so many others. It needs to stop. Her words struck a chord with the audience. Murmurs of outrage spread throughout the room, and several reporters began shouting questions. Nathan raised a hand to quiet them, then turned his attention to the front row, where Richard Carter sat stiffly beside Victor Hale. Both men looked pale, their composure crumbling under the weight of the evidence against them. And let's not forget the ones who made this possible, Nathan said, his tone sharp and accusing. My father, Richard Carter, and his business partner, Victor Hale. They knew exactly what was happening at Genus Labs. They funded it, supported it, and covered it up. They've spent years pretending to be pillars of society while destroying lives behind closed doors. Richard stood abruptly, his face red with fury. This is nonsense, he bellowed. Everything we did was for the greater good. We were pushing the boundaries of science. The greater good? Nathan interrupted, his voice rising. Is that what you call cloning humans? Erasing their memories? Forcing them to live as prisoners in your twisted experiments? That's not science, that's cruelty. The crowd erupted into shouts and applause, drowning out Richard's protests. Security guards moved to escort him and Hale out of the room, but the damage was already done. Their reputations were ruined, their secrets laid bare for the entire world to see. After the press conference, the fallout was immediate and intense. News outlets across the globe picked up the story. broadcasting every detail of Genus Labs' crimes. Protesters gathered outside the company's headquarters, demanding justice for the victims. Within days, law enforcement launched a full investigation, raiding facilities and arresting key figures involved in the experiments. For Nathan and Emily, the aftermath was both overwhelming and liberating. They were hailed as heroes by some and scrutinized by others, but neither of them cared. What mattered most was that the truth was finally out, and that Genus Labs would never harm anyone again. As the dust began to settle, Nathan found himself reflecting on everything that had happened. He thought about Claire, wondering if she was still alive somewhere, watching from afar. He thought about Lily, hoping she had managed to escape the guards who chased her. And he thought about Emily, standing beside him now, stronger than ever. One evening, as they sat together on the rooftop of Nathan's apartment building, Emily broke the silence. "Do you think she's out there?" she asked, gazing up at the stars. "Your mother, I mean." "I don't know," Nathan admitted. "But I like to believe she is. Somewhere safe, maybe even happy. Either way, I feel like I've found a piece of her in you." Emily smiled faintly, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you for fighting for me, for giving me a chance to be more than just an experiment." "You're more than that," Nathan said firmly. "You always were." They sat there for a while longer, watching the city lights flicker below. For the first time in years, Nathan felt a sense of peace. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still trials to face, wounds to heal, but he knew they could handle it. Together, whatever the future held, Nathan was ready. Weeks passed after the explosive press conference that exposed Genus Labs. The world was still reeling from the revelations, and the fallout continued to unfold. Arrests were made, lawsuits filed, and investigations launched into every corner of the company's operations. Richard Carter and Victor Hale faced charges ranging from conspiracy to human rights violations, their once powerful empire crumbling under the weight of justice. For Nathan, it felt like a long overdue reckoning, a chance to hold those responsible accountable for the pain they had caused. But while the public spectacle played out, Nathan focused on something far more personal, helping Emily adjust to her new life. It wasn't easy. Emily struggled daily with fragments of memories she couldn't quite piece together, emotions she didn't fully understand, and questions about who she truly was. Yet, despite the challenges, she showed remarkable resilience. Each day she grew stronger, more confident, and more determined to reclaim her identity. Nathan rented a small apartment for them both in a quieter part of the city, away from the chaos of reporters and protesters. It became their sanctuary, a place where Emily could learn to navigate the world without fear or judgment. Together, they explored simple joys, cooking meals, visiting parks, and even watching old movies late into the night. Slowly but surely, Emily began to build a life outside the shadow of Genus Labs. One evening, as they sat on the rooftop of their building, Emily turned to Nathan with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think I'll ever remember everything?" she asked softly. "About your mother. About me?" Nathan hesitated before answering. He knew how much Emily wanted to connect with Claire, the woman whose DNA she shared. But he also understood that forcing those memories might do more harm than good. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "Maybe some things are better left forgotten. What matters is who you choose to be now, not what they tried to make you." Emily nodded slowly, her gaze drifting back to the horizon. "I just wish I could have met her. Your mom. She must have been amazing." "She was," Nathan said, with a faint smile. "And in a way, you remind me of her. You're brave, kind, and stubborn when it counts. That's all her." Emily laughed lightly, though her eyes glistened with tears. "Thanks for saying that. It means a lot." As the days turned into weeks, Nathan found himself thinking less about revenge and more about redemption. Exposing Genus Labs hadn't just been about bringing down his father or punishing the people who hurt Emily. It was about creating a future where no one else would suffer the same fate. With that goal in mind, he decided to dedicate himself to dismantling the remnants of Genus Labs operations. Using the evidence they had gathered, he worked alongside lawmakers and activists to ensure stricter regulations on genetic research and cloning technology. At first, Emily worried that Nathan's focus on activism would pull him away from her, but instead, it brought them closer together. She joined him in his efforts, using her unique perspective to advocate for victims of unethical experiments. Her story resonated deeply with others, inspiring countless individuals to come forward with their own experiences. Together, Nathan and Emily became voices for change, proving that even the most broken pieces could be rebuilt into something beautiful. Months later, Nathan received an unexpected letter. It arrived in a plain white envelope, addressed simply to Nathan Carter. Inside was a handwritten note. "Dear Nathan, if you're reading this, then it means I've succeeded in staying hidden long enough to protect you, and Emily. I'm sorry for leaving the way I did, but I had no choice. Genus Labs gave me two options: cooperate or disappear. I chose the latter because I knew they'd never stop until they controlled everything, including my family. Please take care of Emily. She may not be me, but she carries a part of me within her. And please forgive me for not being there when you needed me most. Love always, Mom." Nathan read the letter over and over, his hands trembling. Tears streamed down his face as he realized the truth. Claire hadn't abandoned him. She had sacrificed herself to keep him safe. When he showed the letter to Emily, she cried too. Not out of sadness, but out of gratitude. "She loved us," Emily whispered. "Even if we never got to meet her, she loved us." The letter brought a sense of closure that Nathan hadn't known he needed. Though Claire was still missing, her words reassured him that she was alive somewhere, watching over them. And maybe, someday, they would find her again. In the months that followed, Nathan and Emily continued their work, transforming tragedy into purpose. They founded an organization dedicated to supporting survivors of unethical scientific practices, providing resources and advocacy for those seeking justice. Their story spread far and wide, inspiring others to stand up against corruption and fight for what was right. On a crisp autumn morning, Nathan stood on the rooftop once more, this time alone. The city stretched out before him, vibrant and alive, a testament to the resilience of humanity. He thought about everything they had been through, the pain, the loss, the victories, and smiled. Despite the scars, he felt hopeful. Behind him, the door creaked open and Emily stepped out carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Here," she said, handing one to him. "You look like you could use this." "Thanks," Nathan replied, taking the cup with a grin. "What are you doing up here?" "I wanted to see the view," Emily said, joining him by the railing. "It's nice up here. Peaceful." They stood side by side, sipping their coffee in comfortable silence. For a moment, neither of them spoke, content to simply enjoy the moment. Then Emily broke the quiet. "Do you think we'll ever find her? Your mom?" "I don't know," Nathan admitted. "But I think she'll find us when she's ready." Emily nodded, her lips curving into a soft smile. "Either way, we'll be okay. We've got each other." Nathan glanced at her, his heart swelling, with pride and affection. "Yeah," he said. "We've got each other." As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting golden light across the city, Nathan felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but he knew they could face anything together. Whatever the future held, they would meet it head-on, armed with courage, love, and the unshakable belief that even in the darkest times, hope could shine through. And so, standing on that rooftop, surrounded by the promise of a new beginning, Nathan and Emily vowed to keep moving forward, to honor the past while building a brighter tomorrow.